Lucky, motivated, tenacious.
The Brave Files are supported by Julian Desjardins, a certified strategist for small business owners. If you've already made that brave decision to start your own business, it's time to stop trying to do it all alone. Check out our show notes for more information or visit juliandesjardins.com.
You are listening to The Brave Files, real stories from people living courageously. You can listen to the show anywhere you enjoy podcasts, and we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on Apple Podcasts. It really does make a difference, and we appreciate it. Now here's your host, Heather Vickery.
Hi, everybody. This is Heather Vickery. Welcome to the Brave Files. Our guest today is Alex Foley. Alex is an amazing woman who has lived an incredibly full life despite being diagnosed with childhood diabetes at the age of 9. She learned to manage the disease and even had hobbies like flying planes and photography. Planes, pretty cool. Until diabetes took her vision from her at the age of 27. Even through blindness, Alex owned and operated a world-renowned winery, and she now serves as a mobile wellness coach, helping women all over the world be their healthiest and happiest selves. I've really been looking forward to this interview. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Heather, for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here.
It's great. We've been chatting back and forth for quite a while now, and I'm glad we're here. So I would love to have you, and I know it's a long story, but sort of give us a little brief version of your story, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so I'm going to try to hit on some points here. So I was brought up in a very continental manner. You know, I was brought up very internationally. My mother was Brazilian. My father was pseudo-European. So they really brought me up to have a very multicultural life. I speak many languages, which helped me a lot in my businesses.
How many languages do you speak?
I speak 5 languages.
What are they?
The Romance languages. So I speak English most of the time. I speak French, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish.
I love that. I wish I could speak more than one language. One day I will be able to do that.
You know, we can't discuss the whole issue of us, languages in schools right now because that'll take like 10 episodes. Anyway, I mean, I did learn English and Portuguese together, so it did make it easier for the other ones. I learned them growing up. I confused people all the time because I spoke them both at the same time. People were like, what? Anyway, so I was brought up that way in 1977 while I was in camp in the south of France. I wasn't feeling right. I came home and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Now, type 1 diabetes is when, and they used to call it childhood diabetes. It is when the pancreas stops working. It is a full autoimmune disease, and basically your immune system attacks your pancreas and it shuts down. Well, what shuts down is the part of the pancreas that makes insulin, which is called the Isles of Langerhans. At the time, this was 1977, really in the early stages of managing diabetes, and really they were keeping you alive. You were taking insulin that was made from pork and beef, which really does not work well. And you were measuring your sugars by peeing on a stick. Also very not really reliable. And they were like, okay, you're going to take this amount of insulin and you're going to take it at 7 o'clock in the morning and you're going to take it again at night. And it's the same insulin and you're going to be eating at this time of the day and that kind of the day and that time of the day. And you're only going to have, a little bit of this type of food and a little bit of that. Very difficult for anybody to manage, let alone a child of 9. Okay. So it was it was a rigid protocol that made no sense and was not like the way people live at all. So through puberty, I had problems. I had various diabetic episodes, which is normal. Hormones cause a lot of fluctuations. That's why women have a lot of issues with diabetes. And then when I was somewhere in my 20s, I started having like the floaters in my eyes. So they started doing laser treatments on my eyes to try to get the eyes corrected, which usually works. Anyway, in late 19...
It usually works with a little bit of a laugh, but it's not...
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Well, yeah, it didn't work for me. Let's put it that way, right? Oh, and also, I'm sorry, in about 1990, I started using a blood monitor. So I was monitoring my blood sugars better, but I was still on not great insulin. Okay, I didn't get onto great insulin until I had this major crisis, which happened in November of 93. I'm sitting at work one day at this great wine shop in New York, and I'm sitting at work and I'm looking at the pages of my book, my price book, and I'm trying to fill out a very high-end Christmas offer. And all of a sudden I'm like, what is the problem here? And I, close one eye and all's fine. I close the other eye and it's like looking through a cotton ball. I was like, oh my God. So I had a little freak out. went to see my dad's eye doctor, and he had a bigger freak out and sent me to like the best doctors in New York for retinal issues, because that's what this is for. So they sent me to an endocrinologist who took me in hand, and basically they were doing everything they could to save my vision and ultimately save my life. Unfortunately, the boulder was flying down the hill a lot faster than we could stop it. So I did end up losing my vision after about 6 different surgeries due to what's called diabetic retinopathy. Wow. And during one of those surgeries, my eye doctor, a man by the name of Yale Fisher, who's not only like one of the top people in the world in this area, but he's just a great guy. Anyway, he didn't mess around. He was like, he told my mother, that if I didn't do something about it, I was going to be dead in 5 years from kidney disease. So, of course, I'm waking up from eye surgery. My mother's like, you're going to be dead from kidney disease. I'm like, I know, Mom. Go away. But I already knew that my kidneys were, because, they can see a lot through iridology, which is the study of the body through the eyes. They really know what's going on. And oftentimes when, you're having eye issues or sight issues from diabetes, you often will have the kidney issues. Not always, but often. So my endocrinologist, who was another one of these very forward-thinking, honest doctors, was like, okay, listen, your kidneys are going to fail. We know this. Let's get you on the transplant list fast so you can get the transplant while you're still healthy, relatively so. So I did get on the list at the University of Minnesota, which is where they had developed the kidney and pancreas transplant. The pancreas was what they developed there. So I was probably in the second wave of really successful pancreas transplants, basically due to a cocktail of different anti-rejection medications. So my kidney doctor said to me, I'm going to give you a present. He goes, for Christmas, you're going to get dialysis. And I was like, oh, joy.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Fortunately, I was called for my transplant on November 6, 1996. Flew out to the University of Minnesota with my best friend and had my transplant. And it has been I think I'm one of the longest successful double transplant recipients on record right now. I mean, there's a lot of us.
So you had your kidney, was it just one kidney or 2?
Yeah, no, I had one. They don't take out your other ones because that's actually very much more complicated than putting one in. They basically rewire you.
Oh, they just add a kidney to you.
They add a kidney, which is sitting on the left side of my abdomen. And then they graft the pancreas because it's a very gelatinous organ. They grafted it to my bladder. So, you could have some myriad of other issues. Fortunately, I did not or don't really have very many, I have any issues. But literally, they reroute all of the renal arteries and all that kind of stuff to the new kidney. So they kind of shut down the other ones, which aren't working that well anyway. And if you had taken an x-ray of my pelvis, it looks like a debris field of clamps.
And you're undergoing all of these surgeries completely blind.
At this point, I'm blind, yes. Yes, I've already gone blind. But it was really interesting because I had all these surgeries, about 6 different surgeries over about 8 months. And every time I'd have a surgery, my eyesight would come back and I was like, okay, great. I can move ahead. And then like the last surgery was it was bad what was going on. So they did something called scorch the earth, which has a better name, but they call it scorch the earth, which they basically laser the hell out of your eyes. So, and the reason why they do that is to release a chemical, because the concern is that these vessels will grow in your eyes and pull off your retinas. So what that left me with was no vision, except for, no useful vision. I can see light and dark. My optic nerves are completely intact. And that's about it, so they're intact, and I can, one day I'll be able to have a transplant when they do that transplant.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, because it's brain tissue. It's brain, retina is brain tissue. It's like transplanting spinal cord. So they're working on that.
That's crazy. And I didn't realize that you can see light and dark. I just imagined it was all dark. And I suppose
that would suck.
That's better than nothing. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, at least you kind of know when it's daytime.
Yep, I can totally tell when it's daytime. Yeah. I have to wear sunglasses because it gets too bright. And I literally have like a color show going on because that's how my optic nerves interpret the light, right? So they have like colors coming in and out of my eyes. It looks like there's a screen in front of my eyes and I'm at a Pink Floyd show or something.
Well, silver lining, right? Listen to music, smoke. Never.
Right, exactly. Oh no, it's legal. Come on now.
It's legal for you. It's gotta be legal for you.
Yeah. But anyway, so, I went through that and I was like, okay, I'm learning how to be a blind person, which is not easy. And then, I got my transplant, so I was totally stoked about that. I was like, okay, I'm going to live. And fortunately, I had actually gotten on the list to get a seeing eye dog, and I was accepted, I think, while I was at the University of Minnesota, and they said I had to wait 3 months to get the dog, which was the exact perfect time I needed to recover from my surgery. So life was kind of like, after my annus horribilis, the worst year of my life, basically, things were starting to fall into place. Like, the universe was giving me my gifts. So in 1997, in March of 97, I got my first seeing eye dog, Hogan, and that dog gave me my life back. I was able to walk everywhere with this dog, not a problem. I had no fear of anything. I mean, I hated using the cane, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But the dog, no issues. I traveled all over the world, not only with that dog, but with the other two, and all over the United States and all that kind of stuff. I had been in the wine business already prior to going blind. And it was great because I could go right back into the wine business, and, because you don't need your eyes. You just need your palate.
Your nose and your
Yep, you need your nose for the most part. Yeah. But I also wanted to give back because I felt like I was so blessed. I felt so blessed and so lucky that I was able to get this amazing dog. And yeah, they do this for other people, but I was like, wow, I'm getting my life back. So I started working at the Seeing Eye, which is the dog guide school in Morristown, New Jersey. And I worked there as a receptionist in the beginning, as I was working with my stepfather, trading rare and fine wines. But I worked at the Seeing Eye as a receptionist, and then I ended up being one of their outreach specialists. So I used to go to the universities, and for lack of a better word, I'd promote the Seeing Eye and try to recruit people to come to that school. So I did that for, a couple of years, and then I went straight back 100% at the wine business. I woke up one morning, and I didn't know if I was in Cincinnati, Columbus, or Cleveland. Okay, really awful. I'm sorry.
You picked all the C's.
Exactly. All the same state with the C's. I literally had to call my assistant and go, "Where am I?"
And you didn't like that. You didn't love that.
I didn't love that because, I loved getting out and promoting the dogs, but I don't know. It was like not, I don't know. I didn't like it. Yeah, I didn't like it. I don't know what it was about. I just did not like it. I was like,
That's okay. It's exhausting anyway. I can't imagine traveling like that without vision and having to take the dog with you and all of that. Thank goodness it's good. But yeah, it just seems like it's already hard enough.
But that didn't seem to stop me from doing all that. When I started my own wine business with my own private label, I was traveling all the time for it. So, I was traveling between Europe, Argentina, and all over the United States. So, I'm a dummy. Let's put it that way. But at least I was I was promoting something I loved in both things, with the dogs and the wine. So
even just starting this international wine business, in my opinion, is pretty brave. Is the wine business still a thing?
No. So I did it for quite some time, and I had a couple different businesses, and, I was able to, when the market crashed and I had a higher end wine business where I was bringing organic handcrafted wines to the United States, and I was introducing all these new labels, I was doing really well in the New York market. But when we had that big financial crash in 2008, that wine business, the wine industry went to hell in a handbasket, like quickly,
right?
Because it was considered a luxury, thing. So I liquidated that company, no pun intended, and started working with a man who he was a beer distributor, and he wanted to have a wine end. And so, he didn't want to lose the brand. So we created our own brand with my name on it. And I was like, all right, it has my name on it, which was Alex Ellman Wines, because, my maiden name is Ellman. And I had Alex Ellman authenticated wines. And then I also had olive oil, which I still bring in the olive oil. And so I did that from 2009 until 2016, when I just looked at the way the industry was going. And there's an old joke that says the way to make a little bit of money in the wine business is to spend a lot. I was literally hemorrhaging money.
Story of an entrepreneur's life, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And, the way the industry was just going, it was just not, basically the wine industry is complicated because of the laws that were enacted after Prohibition. But now there are just only two major distributors across the country, and they're little ones, but and they basically are choosing what consumers get to drink, which to me makes no sense. And a lot of wines are being created like for certain demographics and for certain flavors, and that to me is not authentic, and I can't play that game. So I got out of the business because of those reasons. And I said to myself, what am I going to? We also moved to Florida at that time. So, and it happened to be, I love I love Sarasota, which is an area in Florida. It's a town in Florida. I just love this area. I think it's so cool. It's got such a cool vibration, and I was like, what am I going to do there? I had a lot of different thoughts and ideas. And then I came across the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I was like, oh, this is perfect, because not only am I going to add to my knowledge of, healthiness, being healthy and well and all those things, but there's a lot of talk therapy that's involved in being a coach. And I'm really good at that because, I figured I should have been paid a long time ago for helping so many people. So I enrolled in the course and I got my certificate, and I have been coaching people ever since. I'm a pretty good speaker for the most part. So I love to get out there and talk to people and just kind of motivate them and inspire them not to worry, not to sweat the small stuff,
Absolutely. And you say don't sweat the small stuff, and it's not been small stuff for you. I mean, everybody has small stuff. These are not little things.
Well, I think the bigger things, I think that I really believe that we only get what we can handle in life. And, if you can learn from the things that you get, or whatever, what the world, the universe gives you, and move forward and help people through what you have learned and what you have suffered, if you want to call it suffering, I call it I'm literally lucky that I have had all these lessons at a young age, and then I can take those lessons and help other people. And I've had a lot of incredible people come into my life because of what I've gone through, or to help me get through what I was going through at the time. So I consider myself very lucky, very lucky in that way. And also, I really never let anything stop me too much. Obviously,
Clearly.
I went through a period of mourning when I went blind, because you had to mourn one way of life and figure out how to live another way of life. And it's not like that there's so much that you can't do, but yeah, I can't drive a car. I can't fly a plane anymore. Exactly. Can't pass the medical.
You loved doing, right?
No, I love nothing I like more than to look at the sky, night, day. I don't care. That was always like my favorite thing to do, was to, watch the clouds and look at the stars and see how things are different, and to be up in the air and just to have that sense of freedom. So I still have that. It's just, a little different. Yeah. I have to work it a little bit differently. And it's fine. Like, I might seem a little blasé about my whole story. It's because I went through it. I've processed it. There are so many things that I learned through all of this that were lessons that, are dear to me. I mean, they were hard learned lessons, but, I felt that they motivated me more. They kept me moving forward always. There was a period of time where I felt I had to prove myself all the time. So I was like going to go climb mountains and all that stuff. Right. And I did all that, but okay, I'm done with that now.
You just casually just climb some mountains. No big deal.
Yeah, they were only like 14,000 foot. So,
Yeah, here's Alex. No big deal. I'm just gonna Were you blind when you were climbing the mountain?
In fact, I'll tell you something funny. I'll tell you something funny. I was on my way to climb the Grand Tetons for my 30th birthday. And the head of the particular climbing school I was going to knew I was blind, knew my dad, knew all that stuff. The day before I was going to leave, this guy calls me and he says to me, I don't think you should come, because climbing is not a sport for blind people. And I calmed down and I said, yeah, okay. I said, I'll see you tomorrow. And I went and I railed, because I got on the phone with the guy who was going to be who was my guide. And he's like, oh, listen to him. He's an idiot. And then, how many years later, maybe 10 years later, Eric Wiedemeyer, first blind guy on the top of Mount Everest, is he's a guide at Mount Rainier, or was, so, please don't tell me I can't do something, because then I'm just going to come even faster.
I love that so much. You are a force, I'm telling you. So when and how did you meet your husband?
Which one?
Oh, there you go.
I've had 3.
Let's go with your current husband.
Okay.
We'll skip the other 2. They clearly don't count.
I'll tell you what's funny. So I was on the CBS morning show in September of 2012, and somebody saw it and called me. And this man used to run charity motorcycle rides to benefit the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, because his wife was a juvenile diabetic. And he called me up right after he saw it, and he's like, oh, I was just wondering if you would be willing to donate a bottle of wine. And this was in September, right? This ride was going to be the following June. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I was like, no problem. I'll donate wine. I'll send you cases. I said, but I want to come. I want to ride. I want to go on this ride, because I've never ridden a Harley. When I was young, I used to have other, motorcycles and stuff that I rode, but never been on a Harley. So I was all excited. I said, but listen, I have a couple of criteria, because all I could picture is like these big, fat, greasy, smelly Harley guys, So I said, the guy's got to be clean and smell good, because, I'm going to be downwind from this guy for 100 miles. So the person who volunteered to ride with me is my husband. Became my husband, I should say. So he volunteered to ride with me. I met him, the day of the ride. We got along really well. Unbeknownst to me, I was also staying at his house. We just got a new house.
Oh,
So
nice.
whatever. So
That's a
yeah, he
great
was a really,
story.
really nice guy. Yeah, it's great.
Obviously, yeah.
I always believe that when you give back and when you do things that are, I don't want to say charitable, but when you're giving back, great things always happen. And that's not why you do it, but great things do happen out of that.
Absolutely. That's why one of the components, and we'll get to it at the end of the show, is talking about charitable organizations. It's something I am passionate about. I totally agree with you. So, I mean, there's so much. We could clearly talk for a lot longer than a 30-minute episode. But out of all of it, what would you say the most difficult thing was for you?
I think the most difficult thing was in the very beginning of going blind, just to realize that I was blind. I mean, I used to dream that I could see. I'd be like sleeping in my bed and I would wake up in my dream and I could see the room looked exactly like it looked like because I knew what it looked like and I could see. And then I'd wake up and I couldn't see. And it was absolutely the most disturbing and upsetting time of my life. And that was in the beginning, in the very beginning. I did really, really do myself a service when I went to group therapy with other women who had gone blind. Some who, it was gradual from, certain eye diseases where it can happen, like glaucoma and other things like that. But there was one woman in my group who went blind. She woke up blind after going in for a hysterectomy.
Oh my God.
So for me, I was like, all right, this is something that could always have happened to you. This poor woman had, went in for a hysterectomy and came out not being able to see because of the anesthesia. So that was a big lesson for me. It was it was a lesson of gratitude, like, wow, I am so lucky that I went, not that I went blind, but that it wasn't one of these, exactly. It wasn't like such a shock. And, we learned from each other and we supported each other. But the hardest time was definitely in the beginning. I remember one day going to wrap a present and not being able to figure out where the tape went. And I lost it. I completely lost my mind. So
it has to be awful. I hear you and I can totally appreciate, thank goodness it went slowly. You had time to adjust, time to, I don't know, capture. What do I want? I want to remember what this looks like. I can't imagine. But I imagine, was there anything like that? Like, I don't ever want to forget what this looks like.
No, because it really didn't go that slow. I kept having these periods where I had these surgeries and I thought it would come back and then it would come back and then my eyes would bleed again. And, but I have a photographic memory. So every single experience I have to this day, I have a visual image of it in my mind, because I guess I've always seen. So I remember things visually still.
That's extraordinary. What a lucky gift.
Exactly. So, that wasn't, but it was just very difficult in the beginning to accept and to learn how to function a different way. I mean, it took me 9 months. I went and hid in my home in rural Massachusetts. And then I'm like, okay, time to pull myself up by my bootstraps because I can't stand being around myself. So no one else can probably stand being around me. And I got to figure out how to live this way, always with the hope that I will see again, but I still have to live my life. I'm not going to sit in the closet. It's just not who I am.
Right. And it sounds like this, I mean, you are intent, you will get this eye transplant, right? Like that's happening for you at some point.
Oh yeah, I believe it. I actually just wrote my doctor an email. I go, query. I'm like, if they can clone an entire sheep and dogs and things like that, where clearly they're cloning brain tissue, the brain itself, eye tissue, the spinal cord, how come they can't make the individual pieces?
Good question. What did he say?
He hasn't answered me yet.
Well, let me know. I want to hear what he says. I think that's pretty cool. Throughout all of this, did you feel brave? Was there a point in your life where you were like, oh man, I am brave as hell. I am like killing this braveness?
No, because it was just what I had to do. I wasn't going to let it beat me. I come from a line of survivors, so to speak, and I just wasn't going to let this beat me, so everyone was like, oh my God, you're so brave. It's so amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I remember one time overhearing my father say, this is the biggest tragedy ever. And I didn't feel so brave then. You know what I mean? I felt like, well, in his mind it was.
Sure, you're his child. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, and I was like, okay. Yeah. And, he's like, you're my hero, and I'm like, listen, I'm just doing it like anybody else would do it. If you were given something like this, you would do the same. But people just can't imagine what life would be like going blind, where I'm like, it's not that difficult. I think not hearing would be far worse for me.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. I can't imagine any of it. I don't ever want to know. I
Yeah,
say
let's hope
that
you'll
a
never have
lot
to.
on these
Yeah.
episodes. Like, the common response is, oh, I can only imagine, except I cannot only imagine. And I don't
Yeah.
ever want to, thank goodness. I hope I don't ever have to. There is blindness in older age. I don't know what it's called. Degenerative.
It's called macular degeneration.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. That runs in my family, and that scares me, but I don't think about it. I don't spend time thinking about it.
No, you can't.
For sure. And I have terrible vision. I see in lights and darks when I take my glasses off. Not to make light of your situation, because it's not the same. But yeah, I suppose that's always right there.
It's funny though, because I just had lunch with all of us are turning 50 this year, and I had lunch with about 7 of my girlfriends from college, and they're all pulling out their glasses, and they're like, "Oh, Alex, you don't have to worry about this." I go, "No, I bypassed that whole thing. I'm right to the end."
I'm at a point for sure where I have to take my glasses off to read my phone. Like,
oh yeah,
I've worn glasses since I was in, I don't know, 2nd grade, and now I can't see with them. I can't see without them. Like, that's fantastic.
I'll tell you one thing though that has really made my life as a blind person, and I'm sure many other blind people would tell you this, much better, is the technology is so amazing. Like, I pray to the God of Apple because, what they have done for people with disabilities is amazing. So I can do just about everything that anybody else can do on my Apple devices, and it comes built into the phone, the products already.
That's very cool. Yeah, when you first applied for this show, tell us about that. Like, what softwares, what systems do you use to be able to do this kind of thing?
Okay, so because I use Apple products, it comes built in. It's called VoiceOver, and it's really called a text-to-speech. It's called text-to-speech software.
Okay.
So
I even use that. So
yeah, so it reads everything, that you touch or on your screen and things like that. But sometimes other apps don't play so nicely with it. So I found you on Facebook in the Facebook group, and I'm like, come on, let me fill out this product. Let me fill out this page. And Facebook, thank goodness, is beginning to catch up a little bit. But for a while there, I could not fill out any forms on Facebook. And Google Plus is catching up also, in the Google Documents and all that. So now things are getting better and better. But it used to get a little frustrating. I was like, can you please email me that so I can fill it out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I had trouble with your, initially with your scheduling software.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
It happens,
It does. It's fine.
Yeah.
You communicated it with me, and we went about it a different way. So
right. Well, that's it. We can always figure it out. You can always work it out. That's what I always say. Be tenacious.
So there have been a lot of, you are a really impressive woman to me. All the cool, you've done more things than most able-bodied people who have not faced a life-threatening illness most of their life have done, that I know. What has been the most fun, the greatest joy for you?
In my whole life? You mean like?
Sure. Whatever.
My greatest joy is just, it's to be with my friends and my family, and, to be around people who are happy, and it's also to see people transform themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons why, I used to love to watch people drink wine and see how great it was, and pair it with food, and then to be like, have their eyes open to something so fabulous. But that's kind of, mundane, or little, I should say, small. To watch people who, are not well, or who want to change their bodies, or who want to change their mindsets, and to watch them do the work, and they know they have them in them, and to be able to transform themselves, that to me is one of my greatest joys, is to watch people grow like that, you know?
It's one of mine also in the work that I do as a coach. I love that. I think that's
great. It's so cool. And then for them to, I sit there sometimes and just listen, ask like 2 or 3 questions, and they get off the phone. They're like, "Wow, thank you so much. That was so helpful." I'm like, "No problem."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I said nothing.
The lamppost effect. There's a great book out, and they talk about that. Like, if people talk to a lamppost, they feel better.
Yeah.
So imagine what they can do if they talk to you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So funny.
So throughout all of this, all of these very difficult things, which you're calling blessings, which I think is pretty magical, How do you celebrate the moments that feel successful to you? The moments that feel like a win despite things that are trying to get in your way?
I believe in celebrating everything,
Me
so
too.
I celebrate every birthday, every holiday. So, so if it's, and I, unfortunately, to my own detriment, sometimes I really like good food.
Me
So,
too.
which is a, whatever. Anyway, so I believe in going, like, I love to go out to dinner with friends or to go eat, somewhere really cool and to just, taste, have new experiences. That's what I like to do. That's how I celebrate.
It's beautiful. Having new experiences is a pretty extraordinary way to celebrate
Hmm.
almost anything, I think.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Check something else out. You've been doing something the same way for so long. Do it differently,
Do it differently. What advice would you give? I happen to have a really wonderful, very close friend whose daughter was diagnosed with diabetes a few years ago. She's a teenager. What advice would you give to young children now who are fighting this disease and this illness?
Well, the most important thing to remember is that the way that I was treated and the way that any of us were treated in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s is completely different than the way that the treatments are today.
Thank
They are
goodness.
thank goodness. They are so much better. People have a pump. They have a constant blood sugar monitor on their hands, like on their watch, or it's on their pump. Their body is always being monitored. So it's much more like your body operates. So although people will have complications or can have complications, they won't be as severe, or sometimes they won't have them at all. The thing that causes complications for diabetics, for type 1 diabetics, honestly, is the fluctuations in blood sugar. So that means when they go up and
Right.
down and up and down. And part of the problem with diabetes is that, or your body anyway, is that when your blood sugar drops very low, and diabetics can go into a coma, whereas people like us who could get low blood sugar, we just have to go eat something. We might get a little stupid,
Right.
spacey, but we have to go eat something. Now, diabetics can go into a coma because their blood sugar can drop so low. When the blood sugar drops very low, even a little bit below normal, what happens is that the body goes into panic mode. It goes into, like, fight or flight mode. And
Right.
so then the liver starts to produce more glucose and it shoots the sugar levels high. So a diabetic will have what's called a bounce back. So they'll be low and then they'll go high for a few days. And then, they'll start freaking out. They'll start taking more insulin when that's not what they need to do. They just actually need to ride out that high, which sucks because you don't feel well.
Yeah. Are you no longer diabetic since you got a new
I
pancreas?
am no longer diabetic. I have not looked at an insulin needle in
Wow.
21 years. Mm-hmm.
That's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. I was pretty stoked, let me tell you.
I'll bet you were. I'll bet you were.
And it was, again, even when I lost my sight, although the pump was in the beginning, I was taking a shot every time I ate. I was testing my blood sugar. Whereas now, if you have, you have these, people have their blood sugar monitors on them. It comes out on their phone. It can be read on their phone. They have the pump. The pump automatically gives them what they need. They're always getting a little bit. I mean, it's pretty amazing,
Yeah, growth. And yet still, I know from my friend and her daughter, every day is scary still. There's still so much to maintain. She doesn't get to just relax and be a kid because she wants to stay alive. It's
No,
tough.
it's a job to manage this disease because different things happen when you exercise. Different things happen with your hormones when, as we have our cycles as women. It's a job, and it takes time to learn the habits of that job.
So we're coming to the end of the show. I want to thank you really for being here. This has been,
Thank you.
I mean, it's we're not saying goodbye just yet, but it's something really to see what you've done, what you've accomplished. I think it's just extraordinary. But one of my favorite parts of this show is always where I ask our guests what your favorite charitable organization is to support. And we talked about that earlier. It's something that's important to you. It's important to me. So share your favorite organization with us, please.
So my favorite organization is the Seeing Eye, which is the dog-eyed school in Morristown, New Jersey. Because first of all, not only do I adore dogs, but it is an incredible organization. It gave me my life back, and it gives a lot of people their lives back. I mean, that's the best. I mean,
Yeah.
I've given to other ones too, but the Seeing Eye for me is the most important.
Absolutely. And that's great. That's why we do this. So as always, friends, listeners, go check them out. Their information will be on our show notes. Share them. If you have something to spare, donate. If you can spend your time, anything you can do, at the very least, just talk about it and make sure that people are aware that this awesome organization exists. So Alex, before we go, can you just share your 3 words with us one last time?
Absolutely. So they are lucky, motivated, and tenacious.
It floors me that you consider yourself lucky. I think it's beautiful. I consider myself lucky. You are an inspiration.
Thank you.
We are at the end of the show. I am amazed. As you can all hear and attest, being blind has not stopped Alex from doing anything. In fact, she's done more than most people I know, climbing mountains and riding Harleys and building a whole new business, starting a whole new life, traveling the world. I think it's extraordinary. Alex, I'm just so honored that you were here to share with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Heather. I really, really appreciate the opportunity.
So that's it for today's episode. We'll have a new episode up next Thursday, so be sure to check it out, subscribe, rate, review, and share it. Share it with your friends. I appreciate it very much. And this is Heather Vickery reminding you, as always, to choose bravely.
The Brave Files is also supported by Frizz Marketing, a boutique marketing firm offering tailored services to small businesses and nonprofits. Frizz helps you distill your authentic story and get in front of the right audience. Contact them today at frizzmarketing.com.
Thank you for listening to The Brave Files. Be sure to visit thebravefilespodcast.com to access the show notes and discover fantastic bonus content. Music composed and produced by Matt Lewis of Union Music, LLC.